All right, let's get right into it. We are breaking down one of the biggest, most watched legal battles in a long, long time, the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs. This is a story that kicks off with a single bombshell lawsuit and just completely spirals into a criminal case that has everyone talking.
And snowball is honestly the perfect word for it. What started with one person's story quickly turned into a flood of allegations, and that triggered this massive federal investigation that really put a whole music empire and a man's freedom right on the line.
Wow. I mean, this one sentence from the prosecution's final argument just cuts right to the heart of their entire case. They were arguing this wasn't just about some isolated incidents. It was about a calculated, ongoing pattern of control, all built on the immense power and influence that Combs had.
So the big question is, how did this even end up in a federal courtroom? Well, it all started with a single lawsuit that sent a massive shockwave through everything. This right here, this was the moment the dam broke. Cassie Ventura, who was Combs' longtime partner both romantically and professionally, files this lawsuit. The details in it were incredibly graphic and disturbing, and then, just one day later, the whole thing is settled for an amount we'll never know. But it was too late. The story was officially out there.
And this timeline really shows you the chain reaction. After Ventura settled, the floodgates just burst open. I mean, within a week, you've got 2 more women coming forward. Then dozens more lawsuits start piling up, from both men and women. And by the next year, you have an attorney saying, hey, we have over 120 more people getting ready to file. It's just staggering.
With all the legal documents and crazy headlines, this one quote from Cassie Ventura on the witness stand, it just brings everything back to the human side of this. Her testimony was so emotional, and it really described this feeling of being powerless, which would become, really, a central theme for the whole case. Okay, so let's look at how this huge wave of civil suits grew into something much, much bigger. The sheer number of accusations, well, it definitely caught the attention of federal authorities, and that's when a full-blown criminal investigation got started. And things escalated fast. First, you have those highly publicized federal raids on Combs' homes. Then, CNN drops that now infamous 2016 hotel video which showed Combs physically assaulting Ventura. He did later apologize for it, calling his actions inexcusable. By September, he was under arrest. And this is really key. He was denied bail 3 different times, with judges calling him a potential danger and a flight risk.
So here's a crucial point. Prosecutors didn't just charge him with individual crimes. No, they used a RICO charge. That stands for Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations. Basically, they argue that Combs used his companies, like Bad Boy Records, as a front to organize and hide a criminal enterprise. This was the most serious charge he was facing, and it could have meant life in prison.
The other major piece of the puzzle was something called the Mann Act. Now, this is an old federal law, and it makes it illegal to take people across state lines for certain illicit activities. So why was this so important for the prosecution? Well, proving a Mann Act violation can sometimes be easier than proving the force, fraud, or coercion needed for those really severe trafficking charges. And as we're about to see, this is the charge that would end up sticking.
And all of this led to a 7-week trial in Manhattan that was frankly a total media spectacle. It was just filled with some of the most graphic and intense testimony you can imagine. The legal strategies here were polar opposites. You had the prosecution building its case piece by piece, calling 34 different witnesses to the stand. And then you have the defense, who called 0 witnesses. Their entire game plan was to try and poke holes in the credibility of the government's witnesses when they questioned them.
The prosecution's case was very methodical. First, they used testimony from Cassie Ventura and another key witness, Jane, to try and show a pattern of coercion. They described these organized parties they called freak-offs, days-long, drug-fueled encounters with paid escorts that were often filmed. Then, they connected those parties to the Mann Act using things like flight records. And finally, they tried to back it all up with evidence of physical violence, from that hotel video to testimony from Kid Cudi about alleged threats.
And the testimony about the violence, it was so direct, so visceral. This quote from Cassie Ventura on the stand gave the jury a really raw account of the physical abuse she said she went through, and it painted a picture that went way beyond what any security camera could ever show.
So, this is what it all boiled down to for the jury. 2 completely different stories. You have the prosecution saying this was a criminal enterprise that used coercion and force. And then the defense arguing, no, this was just a swinger lifestyle, everyone involved were consenting adults, and the government is unfairly going after Combs for his private life.
To really drive home their argument about coercion, prosecutors leaned heavily on Jane. Her testimony echoed a lot of what Cassie said, especially this theme of blackmail. She claimed Combs threatened to release private videos of her if she didn't do what he wanted, which, for the prosecution, was a huge piece of evidence that this was not consensual.
Okay, so after 7 weeks of testimony and 3 long days of deliberation, the jury finally came back with a decision. Let's break down exactly what the verdict was and what it all meant.
And it was a mixed verdict. The jury found Combs not guilty of the most serious charges, racketeering and sex trafficking by force. For the defense, that was a massive win. But they found him guilty on 2 counts of violating the Mann Act, transportation for prostitution, which were related to both Cassie Ventura and Jane. And the sentence for those convictions? 4 years and 2 months in federal prison. So while his lawyers were trying to frame the acquittals as a great victory, Combs was still facing a significant amount of time behind bars. During the sentencing, the judge said these incredibly powerful words. But he wasn't talking to Combs, he was talking directly to his accusers. He really acknowledged the immense courage it must have taken for them to testify, and framed what they did as giving a voice to so many others who feel powerless. The day ended with this really emotional scene. Combs himself just broke down in court, and he turned to his family and tearfully apologized, especially to his mother, for his actions. It was a very dramatic end to the criminal trial. But here's the thing you have to remember. While the federal criminal case is closed, the legal saga for Sean Combs is, well, it's far from over.
I mean, just look at the numbers here. He's got 2 criminal convictions, sure, but he is still facing dozens of civil lawsuits from other accusers. And like we saw earlier, there could be over 120 more coming. So this criminal trial was really just one front in a much, much larger legal war.
So all of that leaves us with this final question. The criminal part is done, but with so many civil cases still out there, what is the long-term impact of this whole saga going to be? For the music industry, which, let's be honest, enabled his power for decades. But more importantly, for the many, many people who risked absolutely everything to tell their stories. I guess that's something only time is going to tell.